Our consoles, are they at war? How does this impact the industry? And could these wars be coming to an end? We have all the answers you may or may not have been looking for, but if you didn't know already, you're listening to the Sonuvageek Podcast.
Son of a geek!
And I am one of your hosts, Spencer, but all my friends call me All Hail Glorious Spen. And co-hosting with me this morning evening is a man who needs no introduction himself. No, seriously, we don't even need him here. It's Zeo! How's it going, Zeo?
Well, I mean, it was good, but then I guess it's not needed, so I'm gonna leave. See ya.
All right, perfect. Now the podcast can truly reach new heights.
You saw me.
Well, it's important.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as it's important and necessary for the podcast.
We talked a little bit beforehand, and we both seem to have different ideas on what exactly a console war could be or is, or if it even has, you know?
Do we?
I don't know. That's what we're here to find out.
All right, excellent.
I thought for sure we talked about it before, and you said, I have a little bit different of an opinion, and this will be an interesting podcast topic. So I was like, all right.
I may have, but, you know.
To be fair, it was a little while ago.
Interesting.
Oh.
You know? We don't want the audience to know if I disagree.
Full of mystery and intrigue today, are you?
Just like our topic.
Ooh. So I was trying to think of a decent way to start this off, because there's a whole bunch of different ways, but
yeah.
I thought the most important thing right now is we've got a basic question that we need to ask and answer so that our handsomely gorgeous listeners out there can get an idea of our stances on this. And so Zeo, I have a simple little question for you.
Okay, I'll try to have a simple answer.
All right. The console wars, do they exist?
Yes.
Oh, they do they?
I think they exist in many forms. Because I remember our conversation. While I disagree with the stance you're saying, I kind of also agree with it because you're not wrong. But I just think there's different points of view.
Well, to be fair, during the research period of before this podcast, my opinion has slightly changed. so
Mine hasn't.
Yeah, I'm more at the standpoint right now where I think they exist in the idea that they are there to some degree, but they don't exist in the idea that they aren't exactly what I think people believe they are.
That sounded way more complicated. Why don't you simplify that and explain it?
All right, so I think that the console wars exist.
Okay.
But what people believe or what they refer to as a console war, they're wrong.
So what do you think that people believe or refer to as a console war then? I guess that's what the question really is for me, because I might disagree with that statement as opposed to what else you think.
Well, I think that is a very good question. And to answer that, we have to ask ourselves another question.
Oh my gosh. This is already too much.
Oh, I know. It's going to be fun and exciting. So the question, though, is what is a console war?
Okay. And that's the thing that I believe is interpretable. It depends on the person, I would say, you know? Like, for some people, it's PlayStation versus Xbox. Which console's better? 4K. Versus, you know, exclusives. But if I remember correctly, you're more on the capacity that the console war is more so of a competition and for creating better games.
In a sense that there's a direct result of that, I think, from it. But one of the big questions that I had when we first started talking about it is it a console war? This whole idea, is it a war or is it just competition? And the war that's happening, is it actually the console wars or is it the fanboy wars?
Well, one could say that they're kind of one and the same.
But are they?
I mean, yeah. A console war is a thought created by the fanboys, right? So, like, it wasn't really like a console war when video gaming first came out. But I mean, yeah, there's competition and each company wants to be the best, but that wouldn't be a console war then. That would just be the company trying to outplay their other companies, right?
Yeah, but I mean, then what's hard about that is that's also where it can kind of be debated, is that's also a form of war in kind of a very basic sense. And that's where it starts to get really confusing and iffy for me. And everything gets complicated from there.
So I guess from my perspective, a console war isn't necessarily stressed by the companies, but stressed more so by the fans. That's how I view it. And the companies have kind of just accepted that and used that for advertising because, it's how you sell consoles. Like, look at the last generation with the PS4 and the Xbox One. So the Xbox One botched their E3 announcement and everything. And they self-defeated essentially. So
Yeah.
PlayStation just made a bunch of jokes about, hey, guess what? You could share a game. Here's how you do it. And he passes a game to a friend.
Yeah.
That was just brilliant marketing. I don't think they necessarily believe that there's a war between them and Microsoft because they each have different ideals.
Well, no, and during the whole process of that, there's I would consider it friendly jabs back and forth at each other.
Right.
So it's not like they're on bad terms with each other.
Right. I don't think they're on bad terms either. But in the eyes of the fans, that was a shots fired, console wars, PlayStation's winning the console war. And, so that's why I say that the fanboys essentially created the console wars. Because when did the console wars really become a thing? When did it become a notion?
Ooh,
I believe that became a notion after the Xbox was created.
I would actually have to disagree with you on that.
Really?
So
did you hear console wars between Nintendo and PlayStation before Xbox came out?
I think the very first, I would consider the very first actual console war where you could really consider it a console war happened back in 1982. It was so what happened back there. Oh, sorry, not 1982. 1982 was the industry crash. And that was caused by tons and tons and tons of consoles being created and millions of games. 1982, there were, what did we have? There was the Atari 2600, the Atari 5200, the ColecoVision, the Odyssey 2, the Intellivision, the Mattel, the Coleco. There was also the Coleco Gemini, and then Sears had this telegame system, and there's all these different consoles and everything, and tons and billions of different games, and there was some consoles were remakes of other consoles, and so there was a lot of conflict and stuff like that was happening between those, and I think that could be kind of considered like a minor console war, but I was wrong. Sorry, it wasn't 1982. It was 1989 was the first one, and it was actually between Sega and Nintendo.
Okay.
And so I would argue that that's the first, and I would consider it the first and really only official or real console war. And that's because Sega had a different approach where it was essentially attacking Nintendo with ads, catchy slogans, and they actually had made up features they had one feature that they called blast processing to try and make things sound a little nice for their console. And it can all be summed up with Sega's infamous campaign, Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
It's pretty clever.
So I would consider that.
So in the marketing way,
yeah,
that would be considered a console war. But did anybody really argue about that? I mean, we didn't really have the internet to what it was today. It wasn't really a thing that people could communicate by. So how could you say that a console war existed
and television and
right?
But it was like Sega versus Nintendo. You had Sonic versus Mario. There was a lot of big things between the two of them back then.
I suppose it could go back to then. I don't recall ever arguing over consoles, though, up until Xbox came out, really. And even it wasn't even when Xbox, honestly. The first mention of what consoles are better would be when the PS3 and the 360 existed.
You think so?
Personal experiences.
Because I grew up with the GameCube, and I remember having a buddy that had a PlayStation. And it was just a constant thing where he was always trying to tell me about how the PlayStation was better than the GameCube, or Sony was better than Nintendo, and all these things because it was cooler and hipper, and the Nintendo was for children. And so I've grew up with people fighting and arguing that kind of stuff.
First PlayStation or the PS2?
Was it the PlayStation 2? Yeah, it was the PS2 at that point.
Right. So that's the time era. I'm thinking. So PS2 and Xbox. So, I mean, that's when I kind of thought it would initially begin.
Oh, that's true. That was on Xbox as well.
Yeah, and I guess that makes sense. I mean, because I remember, I talked about that too, but I actually preferred the GameCube over the PlayStation 2, honestly.
Well, I would say the same thing, and that's just because I had a GameCube.
I had both. And
okay.
if I got to choose a game, I always played it on my GameCube. And the reason was because of portability purposes. So I could take it to play with my friends if I wanted.
Okay. Well, because that was one of they had the handle on the back of it, and it was all made. You could roll it down a set of stairs.
Indestructible.
And it would be fine.
Yep. Literally rolled it downstairs. I rolled it down a street. It's fallen out of my backpack from a bike or a Walmart bag. Yeah. And that's kind of my extent of console wars, but I guess it could have gone back to then. I mean, I had a Sega Genesis and that stuff, and I liked the Sega over the Nintendo, but I never really argued with anybody over it. It was just kind of like one or the other, you know? Do you like Mario or Sonic? So, I mean, we agree that console wars exist, and we agree that companies use it as a marketing tool, naturally. So, what makes it so different, and why do you think it could be dying? Do you think it's dying?
The reason why I brought up the idea has been brought up of is it dying is there's a lot of talk of Nintendo and Xbox basically saying they're starting to push away from consoles.
Right.
They're starting to move away, and I wonder if that's because consoles are expensive to make, and you really don't start to see a profit until after the games are being sold with it. And Microsoft had a huge hit with the Xbox One. They had the Xbox 360. They dominated the market. They were the console to have. And then they got cocky, they made some mistakes, and I don't remember the numbers of consoles sold for each one, but PlayStation was doing absolutely just
they destroyed them. Yeah, no, so and I followed closely on that too, because, I was into the console wars. I'm a PlayStation fanboy. What had happened is, the 360 came out at a great time. It came out 6 months before the PS3 did, and it came out $200 to $300 cheaper because, it just wasn't backwards compatible. It was just a console. You could have it, had small memory, as the PS3 was we're going to make it bigger. It's going to have PS2 games and PS1 games in it.
Yeah.
But it's really expensive, and they thought they could do no wrong because the PS2 is the best-selling console of all time.
Yeah.
And then the 360 dominated, like I said, it just came out beforehand. It was cheaper, and so everyone already had one by the time PlayStation came out.
Yeah.
The PS3. Sony realized that, hey, they don't just shit gold, and people won't buy them if they're not being smart. So they kind of backtracked, and they went to the PS3 that became more competitive. They focused on their exclusives, which did really well for the console towards the end of its generation. And then with the PS4, you could clearly tell they had a completely different marketing strategy.
Yeah.
It was all about the gamers. And then Xbox did the exact same thing Sony did with the Xbox One instead of the PS3. They literally just swapped roles, and then that's why the PS4 won. It's because they focus on the gamers. Now, Xbox has made great strides. I do agree that the Xbox One X was fantastic, and they've pushed really hard to expand on their indie game developments, and while their exclusives still aren't great, they're trying.
Yes.
So they definitely make
if you look
steps.
at the number of exclusives, though, they still don't have anything. They have
nothing on Sony. It's because Sony gives, I think,
which is ironic.
Sony gives a lot of creative freedom.
Sony's done a fantastic job with that. But I love thinking back, though, to Microsoft and their press conferences of all of the number one term that they probably said more than anything else was Xbox exclusive.
Yes. And the worst part is a lot of their exclusives aren't really Xbox exclusives. They're now Microsoft exclusives.
Yes.
So now you can get everything on a PC. So that does hold the argument is why is an Xbox necessary?
Yes. Because there's some games you can buy on the Xbox and then also just download on your computer and play as well. Yeah.
So I don't think with Xbox and Nintendo saying that they're going to back away from consoles, I think that was just a blanketed term. I think they meant maybe the home console.
Okay.
So my thoughts on it is, and what I've been trying to say for the last few years when I kind of predict where consoles will go, is they kind of become computers, essentially. I think they're going to be basically branded computers. So Xbox might release a a PC tower essentially, or it's going to be called an Xbox still, but you can interchange the parts to upgrade it instead of just releasing a whole console.
But then at that point, shouldn't they just be making games for a computer?
Yes, but they got to make their own money. They have to brand it. You know, they have to have their brand.
See, I can see what you're talking about, where it's going to eventually have like upgradable parts and stuff like that. But to keep it still, because like one of the great selling points of a console versus a computer is the price range, and that it's so much lower and more easily affordable than what you would consider like a gaming computer. And
see, that's even a misconception, though. You can build a gaming computer for the same price of a console.
You can, but
still have
you'd be surprised how many people don't understand how to build a computer, and the whole process of it seems very daunting.
No, I completely do understand, actually. Like, this was the world I came into. I built my own computer. This is the very first computer I've ever owned.
Oh, okay.
And I just did my research. I knew it was daunting, but I wanted to do it. You know, I did it for YouTube. You know, like I'm creating a YouTube channel. I need to have a PC so I can edit videos better and stuff like that. And I want to get into the indie game world because I knew there were more options out there for me. And anybody who does the research can, but this is what I'm saying. I think the marketing will change. I think they'll become computer-like. They won't be PCs. They'll still be consoles. And I think they'll just have upgradable parts. You know, because right now, with the PS4 and the Xbox One, you can take out the hard drives and replace them.
Yeah.
I think they're going to do that the same way. They're going to build them. There's still going to be a console. It's still going to be an Xbox. It's still going to be a PlayStation. But I think they're going to make it to where, hey, you want to change your hard drive? Change your hard drive. You want to change your graphics card? You can change your graphics card. They're probably not going to let you change the motherboard or maybe the GPU or the RAM, or they might let you change RAM because those are just easy things you can interchange. You know what I'm saying?
I would hope they don't go that route, though, because I would find that frustrating, though, if I went out and I bought like a PlayStation. Let's say I bought a PlayStation 6 and it's got these different interchangeable parts and there's different graphics cards. And that means that maybe a PlayStation 6 game comes out, but I can't play it now because I don't have a powerful enough upgrade that's in it.
This is where your mentality is different. You're viewing it as a PC because PC limits you based off of graphics, right?
Yeah.
For the games. Consoles don't. Consoles only upgrade higher. So, like, games for, like, let's try to give an example. So, like, Battlefield 4, okay? Or not 4. Say Battlefield 5. I imagine on the original PS4, probably just get to play Battlefield the way it is, the way it comes out. But on the PS4 Pro, you get the HDR. You get the fake 4K. I can't remember the technical term. But essentially, you get the upgraded graphics. Same game.
So it's like,
but the console has more beef to it. So
it's like a game, but there's just different graphic settings based on
what
you have.
So what I can easily see happening, and I think it's a smart move just because it kind of makes people smarter and into it, because then they could at least slowly transition into, hey, buy the PlayStation PC. You know, essentially, and then we got our own PlayStation graphics card, because then Sony can move into creating their own stuff. That's what Sony's always been good at. They're always been good at manufacturing electronics. They're top end of the market. They're pricey, but they last forever. Every Sony product I've had outside of minor things has lasted forever. I had a TV that lasted me like 12 years, and it barely lost any clarity.
Oh, okay.
So I can see them manufacturing their own parts, but I can see it starting off as like, hey, let's have a PlayStation 6, okay? You can upgrade the hard drive, you can upgrade the graphics card, you can upgrade the RAM. And here we have different packages. We have this type of hard drive, this type of hard drive, and this type of hard. So they give you very limited selection of hard drives, but you can choose to upgrade it to make it better. That way when you get the games, this is what you get, the benefits you get.
Well, as long as that happens and I don't have to upgrade the console to play a different game for it, then I'm okay.
I mean,
but if something happens where a game comes out that's only playable on like these certain higher graphics cards or whatever it is for the attachments, then I wouldn't want to play it. I wouldn't buy the console.
I mean, I think it's kind of smart to do it that way. One, they're manufacturing their own parts, they're branding it, so they're going to get their own sales out of it. They're offering those graphic horror players is what I would refer to them as. The people like, oh, I have to have the hardcore graphics. It's an easier way for them to get more sales out of it. Those people can make their PlayStations the best, as opposed to the other people. If they don't want it, they don't have to have it.
I wonder how that would change the lifespan of the consoles then, if that would make it shorter or longer.
I think that'd make them a little longer. I mean, because think about it. I mean, what's the one thing, like you said, consoles don't make a profit, right? So what can you do to ensure your consoles make more profit? You extend the life. But how do you extend the life without like falling so far behind the PC? The ultimate console war really is to keep up with PCs, right? You know, because you always got the PC snobs. You know, PC's better. You can always upgrade whenever you want. You can make everything the best it can be. And so Xbox and PlayStation, they want the home individual to feel like they can compete with the PC elitists. That's why they push the 4K. That's why they push the graphics, you know? Because that's the biggest argument a lot of PC players have. And I think creating a console with interchangeable parts to be able to upgrade, because then they can come out with like a new graphics card later. They can continue to improve their own graphics cards or RAM or whatever you want to process to make it better and faster that you can easily just pull in and out.
Oh, okay.
And I think that would extend the life of the console itself.
I wonder though if it was to go that way, because we had the Xbox One and then the Xbox One X and these different upgrades, and I wonder if that would make those transitions easier or if it would make them more difficult. And I'm not thinking from the consumer side. I'm thinking from the like Microsoft, like the developer side, where they would have to plan the previous console for upgrades in the future. And so would that mean we wouldn't get like a transition from the 1 to the 1X as quickly, or if it would take longer for that because they have to make things in a way that it can still kind of fit in with the previous console and expand from there?
I mean, I assume from a business standpoint, as soon as they launched the PS4, they've already been working on the PS5. You know, I mean, they worked on the PS4 and they're like, how do we make this better? PS4 Pro. Right after the PS4 Pro, what are they working on? The PS5. They're already moving to the next product. So with that, you don't really have to think too much of like, you don't need that half generation. You know, the point is like that half generation is how they figured out to make the console cheaper for them, but still make the same profit or more profit out of it. You know, because each of those, you know, the half generation console, it looks different. It's made with slightly more plastic. It's not as shiny, but it's a little sleeker. It's a little smaller. It means they found parts that they can fit into it. You can skip that whole production and manufacturing part of it and then just have parts. It's cheaper to make smaller parts as opposed to a whole console, right? It's gotta be. So if you can create a console that just has interchangeable parts, you don't need to change the shell. But even then, that could be a part of it too. Maybe they allow interchangeable shells.
I don't know. See, what you're saying makes sense, but there's still part of me that just doesn't like that. I like the idea of just buying my console. I don't mind there being a middle generation one, but I don't like having to deal with all of these upgrades and different stuff like that. And I mean, by the sounds of it, I wouldn't have to, but just the thought of there being the different options and the different things for it, I don't know, I don't like it. I like knowing that when I go out and buy my PlayStation, like a PlayStation 4, that it's what I'm getting and I don't have to worry about anything. And I know there's going to be another edition that comes out maybe a year or two later. And then at that point I can worry about it then, but I don't know. I like that the consoles are limiting.
Why? Well, I mean, they'll still be limiting, but why wouldn't you want an option to, like, if you bought a PS5 and say it had this idea, okay? So, like, say you bought a PS5 that came with I don't know, they'll probably call it, like, a PX1 graphics card, and then you can get a PS5 with a PX2 graphics card, or PX3. You're allowed to choose. You're not, like, you're getting the same thing. You're still getting a PS5.
Yeah, but
and you just get to choose your graphic fidelity. Or if you want, you can just get the PS5 with the PX1 graphics card and upgrade to a PX3 graphics card later. But you don't have to shell out $500.
I'm going to want to just buy the more expensive one.
Right. But that's you. $500 for a family, for a mom who has to buy a console for her sons, you know, she'll get the PX1 PS5. That's $250 as opposed to the PS5 that's $450.
No, see, I get that.
But you guys can play the same games. It's not going to limit. You're going to have better graphics than them in this game. It's no different than when they released The Last of Us for the PS3 and the PS4. It's the same game, but it looks so much better on the PS4.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and it makes sense, and I agree that it's the better option. I don't like it. I just want there to be one.
I mean, that's literally no different than the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. Just they're coming out at the same time as opposed to coming out later.
Did the PS4 and the PS4 Pro come out at the same time?
No, I'm saying like the PS4 and the PS4 Pro came out a few years apart.
Yeah, it's
if you have the upgradable parts, they're just coming out at the same time.
No, I know.
That's the only difference.
I prefer. I don't know. For me, for some reason, I prefer them coming out at different times.
See, I like the idea of having that option because for me, I want the newest and greatest thing, but I don't want to shell out $500 right away. I would buy the PS5 with the PX1 graphics card, and then like a year from now, I'd just get the new graphics card, and then just put it in mine. Because I did that with my PS4. I upgraded my hard drive. You know, I went from a 500 gigabyte to a 2 terabyte hard drive.
See, because I'm not disagreeing with you, and I agree with you that it's better, and that's the way they should go about it, because it's nicer for everybody. I just, maybe it's different, and that's why I don't like it. The idea of that, it's change. We can't have that. Everything's got to stay the way that I like it.
Yeah, and that's fair. It's just, I see that being the next step, because like, how do you make consoles better, really? I mean, people don't care about home entertainment systems. That was proven by the Xbox One. You know, gamers don't.
I would argue that Microsoft overshadowed that with the, hey, you got to have internet, and that basically anything else they said after that, nobody cared or listened.
I know. I'm not saying
if I had the money to have like the whole entertainment system, I would love to have it hooked up through the Xbox One, because it would make things. I think it would be cool just to have everything in that and only have to worry about the console and not the other stuff with it. But I just don't have the setup for it.
Okay.
And that was part of the thing that I thought that was really cool about the Xbox One, where it's like, all right, I can. But I mean, what's also stupid is I think that's what's really cool about it. But I don't watch TV.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, you don't buy a gaming console to watch TV. You buy a gaming console to game. I mean, that's a nice benefit. You could argue
that you buy a console to play or to watch Netflix.
Right, but that's still not TV. There's a difference between Netflix and TV. There's a difference between Hulu and TV. You know, it's just TV. You have a lot of unnecessary garbage. Yeah, I do. There is.
That's a whole nother podcast topic.
It is. But I'm saying, like, you buy the consoles to play the games, and you know, how do you promote the games? You know, people want better graphics. They want more frames per second. How do you do that? You give them a better graphics card. I honestly think the interchangeable pieces, and I honestly like that. That's something I look forward to, because that's something I appreciate about my PC. You know, otherwise I wouldn't have a PC. Yeah. The only real benefit I like over my consoles than the PC is literally just the exclusives.
No, that's true.
I love my PS4. And I would play on my PS4, but I find myself playing on my PC more than PS4 now.
Yeah.
Just because of the games I have, you know. But when a exclusive comes out for the PS4, I drop my PC at the drop of a dime. I'm just on that PS4 playing its exclusive.
See, I use my PC more than anything. But I use my PS4 more than my Xbox One. And it comes down to one reason, and it's really dumb, and it's completely out of context for the whole podcast that we're doing here. But I found I loved the Xbox One and all of its voice stuff, being able to say Xbox open this or Xbox pause and all this different stuff, because it was just a simple little thing that made things easier. I've got a face and hands full of barbecue sauce from eating my chicken wings, and it was just like, Xbox pause, I gotta use the washroom, and then it pauses for me. But the only reason why I don't use it and I use my PS4 instead is because I have a Crunchyroll account, And the app for Crunchyroll doesn't work on the Xbox One because I have too many shows in my queue. So it crashes the app on the Xbox One because it can't
That's
handle
hilarious. See, I don't care about voice stuff. I hate voice command things,
I love
honestly.
it. Okay, let me rephrase that. I love it when you don't have douchebag roommates that screw around with it. Sean, if you're listening to this, screw you.
I love you, Sean.
I had to
Good job
turn off
messing
the
with
voice
Spen.
features because I'd be in the room and I'd be watching something on Netflix and he'd be like, "Oh, hey, are you watching that on your Xbox?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Hey, Xbox, shut off." It's just like, God damn it. So then I got him back a couple times with it and then I had to disable it. But
I gotta backtrack. I remember you
sorry.
saying Nintendo and Xbox said they're backing off the consoles. Now,
Yes.
I think Xbox is going the modular route.
Okay.
Like I said, I think that's the natural progression for consoles and the console.
The way they were talking is it seems like they're wanting to move away from the consoles and focus on like the maybe even PC, maybe leaving consoles altogether. I don't that might be a little bit far stretched. I wouldn't be surprised if there's still one more generation that they kind of stick through with, whether or not it becomes a modular generation. But a lot of the stuff that I've read and kind of been following them, it's that they seem to be leaning more towards the Microsoft Store and that push towards like PC and Xbox. So I don't know, maybe you could be very right with the whole consoles moving more to like a console or like to a PC kind of thing with the different interchangeable parts. But
see,
I don't know.
I think you're focusing too much on the word of console, and I view console not as like a physical being. I view console as the name brand. So like Xbox is the console. It doesn't matter what it is. Xbox is the console. They're never going to leave consoles in my eyes because that Xbox is too powerful of a brand.
I don't know. See,
I don't think they'll ever eliminate Xbox unless it does so bad one time they get rid of it, kind of like all their phones. That's
true. It could go that route.
Microsoft as a company has a very awkward reputation, but Xbox has a very loyal reputation. So the console is Xbox. I don't think they're ever going to leave that brand until it tanks.
I don't know.
That's just
it's hard to say.
But I want to talk about Nintendo. Now, I think Nintendo, as much as I hated them for a while, it's over now. It's in the past. We have a good, loving relationship. I love my Switch. I think the Switch is a work of art. I think the Switch is genius because I think that is another way that they're going to push the future of gaming. I think they're going to eliminate the 3DS and essentially make a portable console, but they'll probably call it, I think they're eliminating the home console idea, and they already did that with the Switch.
Yes, because it's a home console, but it's not. Right.
And they already did that, and I think they're just going to push that, and it makes sense because Nintendo has always dominated handhelds.
Yeah.
That's their niche. They know they're not going to win the home console war just because nobody goes to Nintendo anymore for Call of Duty, or Battlefield. That ended after the GameCube. The GameCube was when they tried to compete, and then it just stopped.
Well, it didn't help that the Wii made it difficult for that to happen.
Right. No, I don't disagree, but then, they went through a lot of changing and growing because they had to choose what type of market they want to go for.
Yeah.
And I think the Switch is the perfect market because it caters to those gamers and the portability. And that's beautiful. So I think that's where Nintendo is heading, and I think that's smart for them.
It's tough to say, though, too, because they have a new president.
Do they?
They have.
Oh, yeah, they do. They announced him, last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, he came out... he came out. The new president, didn't he come in... It was either just before or just after the Switch. I want to say it was just after, but I think it was just before.
I think it was just before.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that he's already started changing. Like they've got mobile games and just the stuff that he's doing. Who knows what direction things might go now?
They could.
Nintendo seems to be opening up to a lot more different avenues,
and that's good for them because they've always been very narrow-minded in the past. But I still think the Switch is the best avenue to follow for them.
I mean,
they dominate the handheld market.
Yeah, well, the 3DS is still selling. and selling well. And there's still games coming out for it, which is ridiculous to think about.
Right, and I agree, but I'm saying I think they're going to make them blend with it, because look at the games. They're both those little
the cartridges
card things.
Well,
yeah,
they moved back to the cartridges because of the Switch being portable and cartridges being able to survive a little bit better, being like tossed around. You can throw a bunch of them in a bag.
Yeah.
Whereas discs, they're not going to survive so well on the portable route. So that's why they went for cartridges, which
I understand. I wasn't arguing that.
Not worked out.
I'm saying they're similar. I'm just saying, like, I think they're going to blend them eventually to where it's not going to be a Nintendo 3DS or a Switch. It's going to be this Nintendo console.
Okay, no, I agree with you in that regards. Eventually, once the 3DS is done, as soon as they stop selling, which may be never at the rate that it's going.
Right.
I think, they're definitely going to be kind of the route where it's the two of them.
It won't be a 3DS. It might be like a Switch Mini or something like that. Or, I think they'll play off of that type of route. Again, so you can have the 3DS still be a home console if you want, or portable only, because that is wildly successful and ingenious.
Yes.
Honestly, I kind of wish Sony stuck with it with the Vita, because I love the Vita. I thought it was a brilliant portable console as well, but Sony has a hard time like sticking to anything outside of just their console.
Well, that doesn't.
Granted, they've still kept the VR. They're not advertising it like crazy in the beginning, but so far they haven't let it go yet, so which I'm kind of surprised.
Well, their VR is good. Like we have the PlayStation VR, and I mean there's some of the games that don't work well for it, like we got Skyrim when it first came out.
Yeah.
But that's not limitations. I don't think that's the limitation of the VR. I think the issue that they're having with it is it's new and people are still figuring out how it works and how to really incorporate it well into their games. Like there's a few games that have worked out really well for it. Most of them are just kind of the smaller mini games. But I like Skyrim's improved a lot now for its VR stuff. There's other games that are kind of improving over time with it as well. And I think VR is kind of like one of those things where, like with the PlayStation, with the PS3, it was a bit of a gamble for them to go with the Blu-ray because Blu-ray was new in the market and they were going for that. Same with, I think,
they
the
invented
Xbox.
Blu-ray.
Did they invent Blu-ray?
Sony created the Blu-ray disc.
Oh, okay. And then I forgot about that. That's true.
That is why the Xbox doesn't. That's why the Xbox 360 didn't have Blu-ray.
Okay, because I know the Xbox, so that's probably why they went for the 4K, and that was their kind of way to try and compete with that.
Well, the Xbox One has Blu-ray now, but I'm saying the Xbox
does it?
360 did not, because Sony created it and they didn't want to share it.
Oh, I didn't know that the Xbox One has Blu-ray now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that changes everything.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, because one of the interesting things too that sucks that it kind of got overlooked when the PS3 came out. I know it was ridiculously expensive, but if you looked at the cost of an average Blu-ray player that was the same quality as the one in the PS3, it was another $400 or $500 at least.
It was the same thing with the PS2. PS2 had DVD player in it, but when it first came out, DVD players were easily more expensive than.
Oh, it was the same thing with that?
Yeah, it was the same thing. That's why the
idea.
PS2 was so successful, because a lot of families were just buying a PS2 and using it as a DVD player.
That's awesome.
Well,
that explains why they had so many
take off
the
same way the DVD did, because it's not, even though while it's a better quality, it's not so extreme that it's noticeable. The DVD just hit the market of creating that HD widescreen from the square picture we're used to.
Oh, okay.
It helped push that envelope. So the DVD was just more inspiring, I would say, to get people to watch things as opposed to a Blu-ray from DVD. Because some people don't care about quality or picture, but when you get more of the picture, that's where it's at.
Hey, while we're on the topic of Sony, I've got a fun fact for you.
Okay.
But first I have to start with a question, and it's that, did you know that we may have never had the PlayStation if Nintendo didn't go, hey, Nintendo? Sony, fuck you?
Yep, I am well aware. It was the Nintendo PlayStation, and they were going to go to disc, but Nintendo didn't want to commit to disc because it would have loading screens and stuff. They wanted faster going into games, so they went with the cartridges and they made the N64. So Sony decided to say, okay, fine, we'll make the PlayStation.
Actually, there's a little bit more to it than that.
I'm summarizing, but yeah, I'm well aware that it was a partnership deal initially.
Well, because the partnership deal was originally it was going to be a hybrid console, so it was going to be cartridge and disc.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't remember that. I remember it was just going to be disc.
No, so it was going to be originally they had their partnership where they had a deal between Nintendo and Sony where they were going to have it was going to be a SNES compatible cartridge /CD console. It was actually going to be called the PlayStation.
Right.
Which later it's referred to as the Nintendo PlayStation. But what's actually neat is, well, when was it? There was at one of the Consumer Electronics shows when Sony basically came out and said, hey, we've got this partnership with the Nintendo. This is what we're working on. People were like, oh man, this is so cool. The very next day, Nintendo announced that it now had a contract with Philips, and which is Sony's competitor. To basically go on, and they were going to have a partnership with Philips now, which was a whole surprise to the entire audience, including Sony. So, which kind of threw a whole bunch of issues into it. They actually still continued to try and make it. There were over 200 prototypes of this dual console were created, but in the end, it was never made. And then Sony basically said, all right, fine. And then they refocused and began developing their own console.
Well, it worked out for them.
Yeah. We may never have had the PlayStation if Nintendo didn't almost screw over Sony and essentially screw them over.
Yeah. No, I'm grateful for that.
Well, because I think, I think originally Nintendo started to look at different avenues because Sony had the contract, which gave them a lot of... they would retain control over the Super Disc format, while also Nintendo would cede a large amount of control and software licensing over to Sony, and that's why they decided to try and get out of it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a little off topic, but
it's fun.
That's my fun fact for you.
Oh, so back to the console wars again.
Yes.
Why I think it's smart for Nintendo to go the route they are, because I don't think Nintendo wants to be in the console wars because, frankly, they've always been in a league of their own, and in the comparison, they've never really been considered for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo is pushing the route of who needs a console war when you have us. And I've always viewed Nintendo, especially with the Switch now, is it's a buddy console. It's not really against the PS4 or Xbox One. It's you get a PS4 or Xbox One and a Switch. So it's always paired with another console. And I think that's smart, and Nintendo saw that, and that's why they're probably pulling out, and they're going to focus on the Switch thing, because the Switch is new and different, and it allows so many different types of games you can play with it and take on the go with you, but then you have your console. So they're never out of the loop. Nobody is going to be like, oh, you get this or this. They're going to be like, you get this and this.
See, I don't know. I don't quite see it that way. I mean, definitely that's how you're explaining it there with the buddy console. It makes sense and it really fits. But I guess I don't want Nintendo to leave the console war as we call it. But
I've always viewed Nintendo as higher than, it's like weird. I've always had this view of like Nintendo has always been like this higher sensei, and then like these are the two the two little Padawans, essentially. So Sony and PlayStation are always fighting for attention, but then the Sensei is like, no, you guys are focused on the wrong part of this.
See, I've always imagined it like if the companies were a family, I would see Microsoft, Xbox, that would be the dad. The dad that's always competitive, trying to show you how cool he is, how he's like hip and happening and all these things, and he's always trying to impress you and have you look up to him and all these things. While Sony kind of follows more of the role of the mom, where she's there for you, you know, she'll help you out with different things, but you know, she's still got that little bit of that weird side with like the otaku-ness, we'll call it, with some of the JRPGs, and that's kind of the dynamic I've always felt between those, where Xbox felt more like a dad and Sony felt more like a mom. But I always thought Nintendo was more of that kind of like that weird uncle, the one that you enjoy having around, but sometimes he's still just a little weird, where he'll come over and he'll be like, hey, I got this really cool idea. You want to check it out? And you're just kind of like, I don't know. It's either going to be good or it's going to suck.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the dynamic I've always felt.
I agree with the Nintendo thing, but I've always viewed PlayStation and Xbox as brothers, competing brothers.
You think so?
For mom and dad's attention, essentially. I've always viewed them as, oddly enough, twins. They're basically like fraternal twins, where people confuse them a little bit once in a while, but for the most part, they have different personalities.
Okay.
And they're just competing for mom and dad's attention, and all Nintendo is the crazy uncle with the ideas. Like, I've agreed with you 100% on Nintendo, and I've always thought that too. They're like the side family that just shows up once in a while and like tries to get you to bargain in with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always viewed them as like fighting siblings more so than like parenting.
No, for me, it's the mom and the dad. Although I did forget to mention, there's definitely the part where they're always trying to compete to try and prove that either mom's cooler or dad's cooler. And that kind of fits in with the thing with the twins always competing for attention.
So our argument completely derailed, I guess.
Yeah, that's okay.
So there is a console war, but it's different for everyone. I think that's the real answer.
Well, because this is, I don't know if this is derailing. This is kind of jumping back to the very beginning. When I was trying to figure out what I truly thought about the console war, I went into more of a kind of an analytical side of it, and I started to look up some different things. And I mean, it fits calling it a console war, but in some ways, I find that it doesn't. Just because, is it a war or is it a competition? It's hard to decide that exactly, because competition is a form of conflict where each company wants our money, and if one doesn't get enough, it's going to fail. So in that sense, you could say they are kind of doing battle with each other to survive. Each company is armed with like services, being games, consoles, merchandise, you name it, and their ads and campaigns you could arguably call propaganda, because they're trying to hoax you into purchasing their services over the others. And you could almost consider each console almost like its own nuclear arms race, where it's each company trying to outperform and kind of outshow their console versus the others for the consumer to purchase. But the one key part that I think is missing to truly call them a console war is that there's no really open and declared hostility between the major companies. And that's why
not the companies, and that's why it's a console war for the fanboys, because there is lots of that.
Yes, and that's why, and it's that, I don't know, see, when I talk about consoles, though, I see it more, and this goes right into what you're saying, whereas the console war all depends on perspective. Because I see the consoles as being the company, and all of this fighting isn't between the consoles, it's between the fans and the people that want to basically say, no, you're lesser than me because I played this console.
Well, that's what the console wars are for. They're not for the companies, they're for the fans.
Yeah.
Even when they make these jokes, it's to rile up the fans so they talk about it.
No, that's true.
The console wars have never been for the companies. It's always been for the fans. They're the people who argue. They're the people who get in the nitty gritty. They're the people who are willing to stab each other for it, and call each other horrible names and wish cancer upon them.
Yeah.
That's really the console war. And the war is never for, the government. It's always for the little foot soldiers that go into battle. And the fanboys are the foot soldiers.
Okay. See, I don't know. I still... If someone was to say, Spencer, is there such thing as console wars? I would still say no, but there's the fanboy wars, or fangirl wars, or fan people wars. The fan people wars.
The fan persons wars?
Sorry, fan person wars. But I guess the other question we haven't really jumped into yet is how does this whole concept impact the industry?
It impacts the industry for the fans. They're the ones who argue about it. This creates the competition. This creates the marketing tools of what you go for. And even with Xbox saying they're leaving a console, or Nintendo's saying that's also just a marketing tactic, because then what, Sony's not doing E3 next year, right? Because they're doing their own thing. Xbox is thinking about leaving the console and focusing on the whole Microsoft industry. This is their new tactics to get people to have attention to them. Like, oh, what are they doing? I'm very fascinated.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because they could still very well leave the console wars and just decide, no, we're not doing consoles. We're going to focus on just making games.
The console is the brand. The console isn't the physical thing.
The brand. The console is the physical object.
No,
the console, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, those are consoles.
Physical objects, but
they are consoles. They are a part of their company's brand.
So is the Steam box. You know, the Steam box is a console too, but it's not in the console war. It does, because the brand itself isn't known for making consoles. It's the brand is what holds the weight.
Yes.
So if you took Xbox out of the name and they called that something else, it wouldn't have the same weight.
But it would still be a console.
Nope. Okay.
It's just like
I get that.
Underneath your TV, like the all of the stuff that you used to have for all of your speakers and your surround sound systems, those were called consoles as well. Those were the consoles under your TV.
No, I get the term console. I understand the literal meaning of console, but I'm saying the war isn't for the physical consoles. The war is for the brand.
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay, so the brand is what makes it the console. I'm saying
the brand is what makes it a console.
Oh my gosh,
it's a console is a console.
Don't do this. You're driving me nuts.
I'm not doing this to troll you. I think calling the brand a console is not correct, because a brand is a brand.
Well, a PC is a console.
And you're right. The word PC is not a console, but the object that you have is a PC and a console. But PC is the term used to call the console. But PC itself is not a console.
Even if they left it and they went to making PCs, it's still a console. They're not leaving the consoles.
But this is where it gets into the fancy words here, because you're right, they're not stopping making consoles, but they're no longer a part of the consoles in which we normally refer to as consoles.
But I always just refer to a console something I can put my game into.
You always refer to
as I refer to my console as just something I put my game into. Whether or not it's the exact same type of console, it's still going to be a console.
Yeah.
That's what people are going to call it.
I don't know.
I get the literal term, okay, but I'm just saying the brand is the console for me, because like you can put Xbox on a PC and that's going to be the Xbox console. The brand is what carries the weight of the console. And I get it's not a literal console, but I'm using it as the reference, saying they're not going to back out, because they're going to back out of consoles. They're not going to call it Xbox.
If they back out of consoles, PCs. They're not. Yeah, which those are consoles.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're just going to go in circles here.
Maybe we are.
They're not backing out of consoles, irregardless.
But if they back out of consoles, then they're no longer a part of like the consoles that we know of as consoles. See, it's tough because console means like a bunch of different things. There's like the gaming console. Okay, they would be backing out of gaming consoles. There's a difference between a gaming console and a PC.
They wouldn't, because the PC can be a gaming console.
It can be, but it is not solely a gaming console. But I guess an Xbox 360 isn't solely a gaming console. It's like an entertainment device.
Yeah.
I don't like this anymore.
Right, because now you've seen the point I was making.
No, because now it's all over the place. It's
ridiculous to argue.
It is ridiculous to argue.
Either way, they're full of shit. The term they're using is just to get hype. They're going to say they're backing out of consoles, but they're going to make more Xboxes. They're going to use the brand Xbox. They're going to place it on a PC. The title, the brand of Xbox is too powerful. They're not going to get rid of it.
No, they're not going to get rid of it because Xbox... Well, I don't know. It depends.
And they're not going to get out of consoles.
I don't know. They won't. Maybe.
Because the entire world will not switch to PC unless consoles don't exist. And that won't happen because they're so afraid of consoles not existing.
I don't know.
They're so afraid of the profit capabilities. So like I said, the transition would be modular. consoles.
Not saying you're wrong.
Replace this part.
I'm just saying I hope you're wrong.
I don't. I actually would
But
look forward to that.
I hope you're not wrong, because it's the better way to go.
It is, because, that's the day I look forward to. One day, the dream is, it's not like PlayStation, Xbox should no longer just be consoles. They should just be brands.
Yeah.
And then the brand is just what you prefer. Just like how, if you prefer Intel graphics card, or not graphics, GPU over like an AMD or the other ones. I don't know. Anyways.
I don't know.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
do,
what you
and
prefer.
I don't like it, but I agree with it.
Because I just want to ultimately be able to game with whomever I want. And like, oh, do you have a PlayStation or Xbox? Oh, sorry, we can't play together.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just I don't like it, Zeo.
Why?
It's the best way to go, and it's really awesome, and it'll make things way nicer. But I don't like the idea of the different potential upgrade or options or choices and stuff like that for the consoles, because I just like the idea of knowing I bought a PlayStation 4, my buddy bought a PlayStation 4, I'm going to have the exact same experience here on my PlayStation 4, or if I go and play on his with him, I'll have the exact same experience there.
You would have the same experience.
I wouldn't, though, because the graphics would be
graphic
different,
fidelity.
and that's not the same.
But how does that change the experience from you playing on a PS4 and then your friend having a PS4 Pro?
Because it's a PS4 Pro, it's not a PS4.
It still is a PS4.
Really, all this just comes down to is my own weird way that I look at it and how I don't like it. And I honestly can't explain why I don't like it. And I think it's just, I don't know. I don't even understand.
Maybe you're just getting old and you don't like change.
Maybe that's what it is.
And that's why you like the Wii U so much still.
Well, it's not that I like the Wii U. It's that I love Nintendo Land and the idea of more games like that. Because it's Zeo. This isn't the podcast for that.
This has been a fun, frustrating, and I felt like we kind of got nowhere with this.
I don't
discussion.
know. It's hard to say. But I think all we can really do is Zeo.
That's all we ever do.
Zeo, console wars. Do they exist or do they not?
Yes.
Now you gotta ask
Spen.
me. Now you gotta ask me.
Console wars. Do they exist or do they not?
I don't think so, but they do.
Jesus, Ben. You're so Canadian. It's the best way I could describe you. You're always like on the fence of decisions. And you're like, I like this, but I see it this way, which is a good thing to be. But I've only ever known Canadians to do that. Like, I have quite a few Canadian friends, and they all do it.
Well, it's just tough because I think they exist, but not in the way that people perceive that they exist.
I think they exist exactly in the way people perceive they exist because it's different per person.
Well, what do you guys think? Vote for me, and I'll eat a pie in the next podcast. A whole pie.
What if they vote for me?
Then I'll still eat a pie. But it'll be what kind of pie do you like?
I like apple.
Son of a bitch, I like apple pie too.
Do
you like pumpkin pie?
Pecan. I do like pumpkin pie.
Crap. What kind of pie do you not like?
Blueberry.
Well, I don't know if I like blueberry pie.
Because I like blueberry flavoring, but I don't like real blueberries.
Interesting. I think I like blueberries. No, I like blueberries. I had to think about that.
Like, it's weird because I love blueberry like muffins and pancakes and things of that nature.
I mean, blueberries are weird.
Blueberry pie is not something I would ever eat just because it's just too many blueberries.
Oh. Well, let us know if you think the console wars exist or not. And if there's something you thought we were wrong about, or if you got your own perspective on it, please share it. Because I'm still on the fence. I don't really know if I think the console wars exist or not. I think they do, but I also think they don't. And it's hard to put. Zeo thinks that they do.
I'm not on the fence, and I think PlayStation's the best. Don't at me.
All right, well, that's all the time we've got for this week's podcast. Thanks for watching the Son of a Geek podcast.
Son of a Geek!
Yeah. We'll catch you next time. Oh, Zeo, do we have a topic for next time?
Kingdom Hearts 3. Is the story necessary? Have they gone too far? Or will there even be another sequel? Tune in next time when we forget about this questionnaire and probably won't talk about it.
You know, I actually read an interesting article about some guy giving very good points as to why we shouldn't review Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah?